Hey, what's up you guys? Yes, today it is time for another creepy video. And today we're going to be doing something that you guys have wanted me to do for a long time, but honestly, I was just too scared. We're going to be talking about some of the scariest unsolved murders of all time. Now, these stories scare me because they could happen to anybody. They could happen to me, they could happen to you. You could die at the hands of somebody else, and that person might never get arrested. People might never know the truth. And when I was researching for this video, I found some stories that were so disturbing that I literally had to turn every light on. So here are just a few of the ones that gave me nightmares. First, we're going to talk about the woman in the water. Now, before I start this one, this is probably the most famous unsolved murder ever. And I'm pretty sure Destry did a video on my channel about it a couple months ago. But it is so incredibly insane and so terrifying that I just had to talk about it in this video. So there was a woman named Elisa Lam. She was 21 years old and she was from Canada. In 2013, she was visiting California and she was documenting the whole thing on her Tumblr page. And then in February, she went missing. Now this is where it starts to get creepy. The last thing that was seen of her was an elevator security camera that showed her doing some very creepy shit. Okay, so here's the first part of the video. You can see her entering and then exiting like multiple times. Then she seems to like hide in the elevator as if she's hiding from someone, but there's no one there. And then she left the elevator and that was the last place she was seen. Now, this elevator she was in the Cecil Hotel in Los Angeles. She was staying there for a few nights while she was on her trip to LA, and then that's where she went missing. Now, this is where it gets fucking gross and very disturbing. Over the next few days, some of the people that were staying in the hotel noticed that the water was kind of fucked up. They said it was brown, sometimes black. They said it smelled weird and that it tasted funny. So one morning, an employee went to the roof to check out the water system because maybe there was something wrong, and there was. On the inside of one of the huge 1,000-gallon water tanks was her body floating face down. I know. Fucking insane. And her body had been deteriorating in that big water tank for 2 fucking weeks, which means everybody in the hotel had been drinking it and showering with it. Now, of course, the hotel apologized and gave everybody refunds and did whatever they could to not piss people off. But I mean, the damage had already been done. But the scariest part of it is people still don't know what happened or how she died. People don't even know how she got in there. The space to get into the water tank was so small, it was pretty much impossible for her to get in. And after the autopsy report, there was no signs of trauma or anybody beating her up. She was just dead. And now we don't know how it happened. And I definitely want to go to that hotel. I'm gonna write that down. Actually, no, that would be way too scary. I don't even know if I'd want to do that for a video. Ugh. Okay, now the next story is extremely graphic and very sad, especially because it involves children, so if you are squeamish to that, I would leave. This is the story of the Girl Scouts who were murdered. So on Monday, June 13th, 1977, there was a bunch of Girl Scouts that were having a camp out. It was nighttime and all the girls were huddled in their tents. In tent number 8, there was 3 girls, Lori, Doris, and Michelle. They were all under the age of 10. Now, their tent was the farthest one away from the camp counselors and kind of in the distance. Well, the next morning, one of the counselors was walking to the showers and she saw a little girl dead in a sleeping bag in the forest. Then she discovered that there were actually 3 girls that were dead, Lori, Doris, and Michelle. The girls' bodies were laid out in the forest 150 yards from their tent. Police said that their bodies looked like they had been raped, bludgeoned, beaten, and strangled. By the tent, they found tape, rope, a gag, and a flashlight. Now, the most disturbing part is that somebody sent them a warning. Now, 2 months before this happened, the camp counselors were having a training session. One of the counselors had all of her belongings stolen. She had a box of donuts, and the person took all the donuts inside of it. But inside the donut box, they left a creepy handwritten note. The note said that they were going to murder 3 of the campers. Now, everybody just thought it was a joke or a prank, so they threw the note away. Now, this went through a huge investigation. Police were looking for a suspect. They could not find anybody. But eventually, they did find Gene Leroy Hart. Now, this guy was convicted previously of kidnapping and murdering pregnant women, and he broke out of jail 4 years before that, and he had been on the run ever since. Now, when the police caught him, he was close to the crime scene, so they put 2 and 2 together and looked at the evidence and thought that he might have done it. Well, he was put on trial, and even though all the evidence was there, for some reason, he was acquitted. I mean, he was still sent to jail because he had broken out, so they put him back, and then he died in jail. and we still will never know who killed the Girl Scouts. And just in case you're wondering what happened to the camp, it was shut down right after the murders, and it's been abandoned ever since. Here are some really, really creepy pictures of the camp as it looks now. It has been sitting there empty for years. Okay, this next story is just as creepy as the last one, and somehow even more graphic. This is the story of the boy in the box. In February of 1957, a boy's body was found wrapped in a blanket and stuffed in a cardboard box. The boy's hair had been cut off, and there were signs of severe malnourishment to his body. He also had surgical scars on his ankle, his groin, and an L-shaped scar under his chin. Now, this happened in Philadelphia, and the boy's age is unknown. They think he was between 3 and 7. Also unknown is his identity. Nobody knows who this kid is, who his parents are, where he came from, who killed him. Just a boy dead in a box, and nobody knows how it happened. For years, police tried to figure this out. They looked through all the clues, all the evidence. They found nothing. Now, the police wanted to show everybody in the city and pretty much around the world what this boy looked like so they could find the parents. But because the boy was dead and in a box, they had to make him up and take a picture of him. That's right. It's called post-mortem photography. It's where you make up a dead person and you put them in nice clothes and you seat them in a seat and you take their picture as if they're alive. So the police did that with this little boy, and the picture looked like this. I know, so fucking disturbing. Now, even though this picture was posted everywhere, people still had no idea who the boy was, nobody recognized him, and it didn't help. Now, an artist named Frank Bender even went as far as to make a sculpture of what the boy's father would have looked like, just like based on what the boy looked like, hoping that if they put those pictures everywhere, somebody would find the dad. Ugh, something about that picture, knowing it's a sculpture, just, I don't know. Now, years later, the guy that made that sculpture, he came out and said something that really interested the cops. And here's the quote he said. "I'm almost certain they've been missing the boat because they've been showing a boy. And he is a boy. But the boy, I believe, was dressed as a girl." I know. Fucking trippy. So he thinks that whoever raised this boy dressed them to look like a girl. He said his reasonings for this was that his hair that had just been cut all off was like still attached to his body, and it was really long hair. He also said that the eyebrows looked like they had been plucked. So then he decided to draw what the boy would look like if he was a little girl, and that's this picture. Well, that theory didn't help either, and the murder is still unsolved. Okay, so this next story isn't really an unsolved murder because they kind of solved it, but also it's a lot different from previous stories because this involves a lot of government shit, and it is fucked up. And this is the story of death by mail. So as you guys know, obviously back in September 11th, 2001, the Twin Towers were hit by planes and then crashed to the ground. Well, a week after that, something insane happened. Letters containing anthrax were sent to people across the country. It killed 5 people and infected 17 others. Okay, so before I go into what the letters were and how fucking insane that is, let me explain what anthrax is. Anthrax is one of the most lethal and deadly bacteria. Once you inhale it, it goes into your lungs and the bacteria starts to rise. It makes your lungs swell up, it makes it so you can't breathe, and then you die. So somebody sent letters with this disease on it to strangers, and those strangers opened the letter and it said this: 9/11/01, you cannot stop us. We have this anthrax. You die now. Are you afraid? Death to America. Death to Israel. Allah is great. What? Literally, can you imagine? Just imagine. You go to your mailbox, you open up the mail, you see a letter, you open it up, and you read that, and then some like bacteria falls off the letter and you inhale it. Literally the scariest thing I could fucking think of. Now, the letters were mostly sent to news stations, like ABC News, NBC News, pretty much all those big news stations. The first person to die from this letter was Robert Stevens. He worked for the Sun tabloids, and he died on October 5th of 2001. So he opened the letter, saw what it said, freaked out, inhaled the bacteria, and then went to the doctor because he couldn't stop vomiting, and then he died. Of course, the FBI was trying to find out who did this, and they searched forever. They went to 6 different continents, they interviewed over 9,000 people, and they still could not figure out who did it. Then there was a man named Bruce Edwards Ivins. Now, he was a scientist that worked at a government lab. And he worked with anthrax, and he worked with, I'm not a scientist, but he basically worked to try to find a cure, try to find out how to beat it, where it came from. But then the FBI started interviewing him, asking him questions about if he might know anything. That's when he started to snap. Well, the FBI started surveillancing him and really looking into his life and seeing if he might have known something about this anthrax attack. Well, then the FBI found some pretty hardcore evidence to show that he actually did do this. He is the one that was in charge of spreading out all this anthrax. And when Bruce found out that they might know something and that this might be the end, he committed suicide. And because he killed himself, the FBI could still not actually convict him of the crime. So technically, it's still an unsolved murder. And by the way, a lot of people don't think he had anything to do with it. A lot of people think the government was just trying to find somebody to blame it on. But we'll never know. Okay, so this next murder is pretty touchy because it involves a transgendered woman. And I feel kind of weird talking about it because I don't want to seem like I don't know. I just don't want people to think that I'm somehow trying to get entertainment out of what happened to this woman, because it is fucking awful. But I also feel like it might be important to share this story because it might shed some light and show people that prejudice and hate is still very much around, and that we have a lot of work to do to make this a safe country for everybody. So on the night of July 23rd of 2015, a transgender woman named Casey Haggard was walking the streets of Fresno, California. So as she was walking around, a van pulled up and asked to talk to her. So she walked up to the window and she started talking to them, and then the person in the van took out a knife and stabbed Casey in the neck and then drove off. After they drove off, Casey was wandering the streets, bleeding from her neck, trying to get help, and she collapsed and she later died. And to this day, police have no idea who was in that van. I know, it's fucking awful and brutal and disgusting and just breaks my heart. Well, her brother Gerald came out and said this: "The tragic death brings light that a lot of transgender people, or anybody who looks different on the street, don't just face persecution, they face danger." And that is very true. It is not a safe world out there, and you need to be extra careful, especially if you are different or look different. I'm not going to go into it, but I have had experiences walking out on the streets. People are just fucking awful, and you need to stay safe. And I just cannot believe that the suspects are still out there dragging the streets. It's fucking insane. Okay, so this next story is a little different. It's not technically a murder, although a lot of people think it is. This is the death of Anna Nicole Smith. And I'm not going to go completely into this because I kind of think I'm going to do a whole conspiracy video on it. But if you don't know who Anna Nicole was, basically she was one of the biggest models in the world. She had a reality show. She had a weight loss pill. She was on Playboy a bunch of times. But the last few years of her life were pretty rocky. She got into prescription drugs, she started hanging out with bad people, and then in February 8th of 2007, she died of an accidental drug overdose. Well, after she died, a lot of conspiracy theories started about her death. Some people think that she was poisoned or she was murdered. Some people think that somebody in her life gave her a bunch of pills because they wanted her to die so they could take her money. And one of the biggest suspects in this was her husband. Now, a lot of people think the reason he might have had something to do with this is because of this video that came out after she died. Now, in this video, you can see her wearing clown makeup, seeming out of her mind, with her husband filming her and talking to her. It's very, very disturbing. Just check it out.
Anna. Anna, look at me. Riley thinks you've absolutely lost your mind.
Huh?
Riley thinks you've lost your mind.
I didn't lose my mind.
She thinks you have.
I didn't.
Is this a mushroom trip?
Huh?
Is this a mushroom trip?
Huh?
Is this a mushroom trip?
What do you mean?
I'm kidding.
What does that mean?
I'm kidding.
I know. Very, very disturbing. Clearly, she's not in her right state of mind. Why is her husband filming her? Then he says something that gets really uncomfortable.
I said this footage is worth money.
Why? What footage?
This thing you're looking into?
It's a camera.
Exactly.
Yeah, he literally was talking about how much money they could make from this videotape of his wife looking mentally insane. What? Now, I don't know. He was found innocent. He supposedly did not do anything. That tape, though, is fucked up. And I just feel like there's more to her death than just an accidental drug overdose. But once again, I think I'm going to save that for another video. So the last story is literally insane, and I don't even know how to explain it. But it is one of the creepiest things I've ever fucking heard. And it makes me terrified of Canada, which is crazy because I love Canada. This is the story of the shoes on the beach. Now, have you ever been walking up and down the beach and you might have seen a shoe in the sand? Maybe somebody forgot to put it back on, or maybe it just washed up on shore. It's just a shoe. While in Canada, on the British Columbia shoreline, sometimes shoes wash up from the beach, and those shoes have feet in them. Human feet. I'm not fucking kidding. It happens a lot. Since 2007, there have been 16 different shoes with feet in them that have washed up on the beach. Now the weirdest part, all the shoes are running shoes. All of them. And nobody knows where they came from. Literally, there's no leads. Now a lot of people say, oh, you know, there's a big bridge in the British Columbia and maybe people jump off and kill themselves. But why would they all have running shoes? Literally the same type of running shoe. That doesn't make sense. Some people think that maybe a serial killer likes to kill people who are on a run around the beach, and then he chops up their bodies and throws it into the ocean, and that's why it's always a running shoe. But literally those are the only theories, and nobody's really looking into it. And it's still happening. Like, Google it. It is still happening. If you go to the beach in Canada and you see a shoe, bitch, there's probably a foot in it. What? I don't know. That story out of everything made me the most uncomfortable because I can't even wrap my brain around that. So all I'm saying is if you're at the beach and you see a shoe, don't pick it up. Just leave. Well, there you guys go. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. It's my first unsolved murder video. I thought it was kind of fun. Well, scary, but fun. And if you guys want more of these unsolved murder videos, I have like a list of a bunch of them, and they're all very fucking scary. Give me a thumbs up and let me know. Also subscribe to my channel right down below because I make new videos every day. And if you want to see all my other creepy videos where I talk about death and conspiracy theories, I'll put a link to a playlist right at the top of the description below. Alright, you little shoes. I'll see you tomorrow. But here is what is going on, and I'm so excited because they are letting me do whatever the fuck I want. And let me just explain to you why that is a bad idea. Because look at what I just did. I went out and I bought literally so much food. Look at this. Look at this. Look at that.